Good afternoon. Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So last week we have been discussing in the recovery management process and warning symptoms, and we come to finally end up with last week. This is supervision, follow-up, monitoring. Briefly, we had discussed about what is the remedial management concepts. Right. We stop at I think this point monitoring performance. About regard what is monitoring performance. Monitoring performance to check the continued viability of operations. We discussed that last week. And verification of end use of bank credit. Very important to find out because this is the end use of bank credit. What purpose we are granted the credit. After granting the facility, we see whether the customer used the funds for that particular purpose. Otherwise, our repayment will be getting difficulties because the customer, we evaluate the proposal using that customer's need. We granted the facility used for that need. If the need is fulfilled, then customer can earn profits, earn return. That's what we have our expectation. But if you are not used for the need and he has misused the funds, then we have problem. In such cases, we have the option to recall the facility at any time. According to the contract, we are trying to put the customer back to the track, but not then the final option we have is to recall the facility. At any time, we can recall the facility. Okay, the bank has to satisfied or complacent with the existence of good quality merchandise as security. If you taken stock into an inventory, that will be saleable. That should be quality should be there because saleability. Periodical scrutiny of balance sheet gives the assurance of solvency. The ratios will be working out. So let's see what are the physical inspection in the credit supervision. But the very important part is site visits and inspections. Go to customers' business premises, site, and do an inspection. What are the things to be inspected? How we carry out the inspection? Physical inspection on inventory is very important. The first one is existence of a security cover. Always we have a ratio. Inventory, when you take inventory, always we have 50% of the loan value should be 50% of the inventory value. That's our normal ratio. That means, in other words, the security cover should be 1 to 2. The security cover should be one loan, twice the loan amount, security cover should be there. So always in the physical inspection, we have to see that the inventory is fluctuating. Customers' inventory is fluctuating. That is, the customers using the inventory for sales and new inventory is bringing up. Therefore, it is always in the fluctuating. So at a given time, meantime, whether that security level, security balance, the security coverage, the inventory coverage, have a security coverage for the inventory, right? That is the double the loan value, inventory should be there. Sometimes you may find security cover, the inventory may have come down. So there's a risk for the bank. If the inventory come down, not matching with the loan amount, that ratio, 2-to-1 ratio, is not matching, then we have a risk. So we have to verify and see whether it is for a short term or it's a permanent one. The permanent one, we have taken precautionary action to reduce the loan value or increase the security cover. Okay. If it's over and above the loan value, we don't have to worry because we have a sufficient coverage. Always 50% coverage should be there. 50% of the inventory, the loan value should be there. Then there will be some problems comes with the security cover again. The inventory value should have a, we discussed earlier, how to do the valuation. It should be valued at the market price or purchase price, whichever is less. And for the insurance cover, we have to take to the market value of the insurance, the inventory. If the inventory is increased, for example, the inventory has brought into the stores. So the inventory value has been increased. We have to check whether the insurance cover is sufficiently cover that value. Otherwise, what will happen if anything happens? The insurance may not pay, or insurance pay a lesser amount proportionately. Now, always see when you go for inspection, the existence of insurance cover, security cover, as well as whether it has a sufficient insurance cover. If the insurance cover is not sufficient, we have to get a temporary cover on the insurance, temporary cover. The correctness of the stock list. So the stock list is prepared by the customer. He can accelerate the price and increase the value of the stocks, by which security cover can be increased. Load can be increased. So always you have to see the correctness of the goods, see whether valuation has been done properly. I told valuation should be purchase price or market price, whichever is less. Then the quality of goods, obsolete goods, slow-moving goods, are there in the list. Those does not have a market value. Obsolete goods, expired goods, slow-moving goods, these does not have a market value. In emergency, if you take charge of those stocks, we can't sell because those are obsolete. There's no market to sell. Therefore, always stock list has to be cleared with the saleable items. Then only we can get a proper security coverage in our lending for the lending portfolio. In the pricing policy I just mentioned, what is the pricing policy? Customer's pricing policy. It should be market price or purchase price, whichever is less. Whether the bookkeeping is up to date. The bookkeeping means record keeping is up to date. So now even a small business can afford to buy what you call a software package to maintain their stocks. So it's very easy, and the stock maintained package is established with the sales counter. So whenever item sold, it will be automatically updating the stock position. Inventory control and reconciliation of physical quantity conformity with the other records. The physical count, quantity should agree with the book value or closely. So you have to reconcile the both frequently whenever you go for a visit for in a physical inspection. Now I'll give a small case. I think I don't know if I have discussed this. Sometimes some fraudulent mind people may mislead the bank by showing wrong inventory, others' inventory. There was an incident to happen. We went from our Third Cross Street, one of the textile dealers' stocks to verify. So we informed earlier that we are visiting. So manager and myself went to that place. We have seen stocks were there, and we have satisfied with the stocks and all. And after inspection, we came back. On the way, manager said that he left the spectacles there, and he want to come back and correct it. So I said, not necessary immediately. We'll finish the other inspection and come back. On the way, we go and collect the spectacles. Those days, we didn't have any mobile phones, no. So we went to the other inspection, finished that inspection, return journey. In return journey, we dropped to that particular customer's shop. to see there's no stocks in the shelves. There's no stocks in the shelves. It was amazing. At the moment when you go to inspection, there are everything, the stocks were filled in the shelves. When you return back with him to see, most of the shelves were empty. What has happened? This guy has borrowed stocks from the other shop, adjoining shop, and filled and showed us. Right? He borrowed from the other shop and filled here and showed the camouflage picture, a painted picture. So if we had taken that as it is and if we had not come back second time, we would have got caught. We have misleaded. These type of culprits are there. The inventory control and reconciliation physical control, conformity of the records very, very important. Then physical inspection on the operations. This is of course in the manufacturing organizations. When we do a visit, what are things to be looked into? Where are the problems? This when you do inspection, it's also monitoring performance. We can see, identify warning symptoms. General tempo of activity and the shift work and how many shifts were worked, whether the availability of orders to supply, how the shifts were worked. Number of shifts, sometimes one shift, two shifts, or three shifts, depending on the demand for the production. Then percentage of utilization. The operation in ideal machinery, ideal labor hours. What was the utilization percentage of the machinery and the labor hours at the time of granting the facility? So when you go for inspection, we had to see whether this is the usage of machinery and labor hours are agreeable with our assumption made at the time of granting the facility. Or okay, but if it is less than our projected level of utilization, then the cost of funds will be getting increased. The cost of funds increase, then tendency to default is increasing as a risk. Then how many orders in hand? Will the customer have sufficient raw material to manufacture those items? And whether labor are available, whether the customer can fulfill these orders. If orders are not fulfilled in time, they may lose their market. Again, that will affect our recovery. What is the debt collection pattern? How long the debtors are given time to pay the loan facilities? That also plays a big role for us. The higher the debt collection days, right, will affect in the liquidity and the cash flow of the customer. When the cash flow and the liquidity is affected, he had to borrow. When he borrow, it's costly. It will deteriorate the profit. Okay, so the collection pattern was important. Although most of the businesses try to increase their credit sales to show big sales value, but on the other hand, debtors are increasing. When the debtors are increasing, bad debts are increasing. Availability of raw materials, spares, power, and fuel. Right? Machineries with that, when the orders are in hand, and what are the required raw material, spare parts, the power and fuel are available. Then the labor situation. What type of labor they need? Skilled labor, unskilled labor, the quantum of labor, how much of labor they needed, whether sufficient amount is available. Sometimes you may find some industries, there's a scarcity of labor. There's high demand for certain type of labors. Have you observed anything like that? Have you observed anything like that? When you're going in the bus, sometime I have seen some of this in the telephone post, light post, bus stands. Notices are posted that asking for labor, specifically apparel industry. So there's this very big shortages in labor, labor shortages in the apparel industry. You may find that the company is offering huge salary packages, huge benefit packages, meals, transport, traveling, overtime, a number of hours working shifts, right? Likewise, number of advertisement regarding this labor requirement, skilled and unskilled. What is implies to us? అంతేకాని అమ్మ లైట్ కనుమా బస్ స్టాండ్ దిగమా వేకెన్సీస్ తాళ దిగ What does it tell us? There's a scarcity of this labor type of labor. So when our customers in such business, when they come for a facility, these things we have to take into consideration. We have to ask questions for how they try to overcome this labor situation. Then marketing difficulties. Marketing means sales and marketing. Any difficulties? Whether they have a sufficient market, who are the distributors? Right? The change in management setup. That is also important. If it is changing frequently, there's a high risk in that. The signs of incipient sickness notice. You notice sicknesses. There are sometimes in operations, sometimes the labor turnover, sometimes in the supplies, raw material supplies, other services supplies. So sometimes you may find the power failures, frequent power failures, power dropouts, coal shortages. All these are matters for us. And all these have an impact on our repayment of facility of the customer, and it will affect our recovery. So next one is comes the follow-up. Supervision, monitoring and follow-up. Follow-up, there are three areas of follow-up: financial follow-up, legal follow-up, and physical follow-up. Okay, physical follow-up will be qualitative follow-up and quantitative follow-up. Qualitative means the quality of the follow-up. That means what type of things we are observing. Quantitative follow-up means within the documents, statements and documents, verify the documents with that quantitative follow-up. So let's see what are these follow-ups are. Financial follow-ups includes quarterly operating financial statement. That is quarterly P&L balance sheet and the cash flow statement. Those are the financial statement. You call quarterly for the customer and check, follow up with the previous week, previous month, and check, compare with the budgeted statistics, whether the customer is performing according to the line of granting the facility or not. Then other operating statements like fund flow statement, current assets and current liabilities, profit and loss account, balance sheet, and stock list are some of the reports related to performance we call from the customer. Then the financial follow-up will be, the other one is financial follow-up. It will be quarterly operating financial statement, fund flow statement, current assets and liabilities, profit and loss account, balance sheet. All these things are operating financial follow-ups. Then the legal follow-up. What is a legal follow-up? First is the document, whether C2C, check whether documentations are perfect. The documentations are perfect. Perfect documents have been obtained. Now, sometimes you may find Small banks, where it has not been fully automated, still using the uh, printed documents, pre-printed documents. When you take pre-printed documents, you will see whether we have taken correct format for the document. We have come across in the case going to file action reports. Some documents are not, the formats are not correct. Some banks have taken company documents for related to the company for partnerships. Then some formats are not relevant. Those are important. Then the educatory stamp. Now this is another important factor because all the documents subject to Stamp Duty Act to pay a fixed stamp duty on the document. Correct amount of stamp duty has to be paid. Method of paying of stamp duty, there are 5 years of paying method, depending on the quantum and the document. Stamp duty payment methods are different. When it comes to most common is in the adhesive stamps. What's in the adhesive stamp? That means pasting the stamp on the document. And now there's Stamp Duty Act number 10 of 2010 clearly indicates regarding this adhesive stamps. Whenever we take adhesive stamp for execution of a document, that adhesive stamp has to be cancelled. It has to be correctly cancelled according to legal requirement. If not, and Section 4 of that Act says, deemed to be unstamped. If you are not paid correct amount of stamp duty, if you are cancelled the stamp properly according to the legal requirement, it's deemed to be unstamped. So the document is legally null and void. This follow-up means documentation follow-up, very important. Normally we call this as a credit audit. Before the documents are lodged, check whether all things are in a perfect order. How to cancel a stamp? How to cancel additional stamp? According to the Stamp Duty Audit Act number 10 of 2010, adhesive stamp has to be cancelled by by writing the name on the stamp, across the stamp, or initial, by ink pen, by ink. So this is the requirement under Stamp Duty Act. Writing the name or initial across or across the stamp, by which you can cancel. Now let's see how we cancel the stamps. We place a signature on the stamp. What is the impact on it? Firstly, according to the Stamp Duty Act, signature is not recognized as a method of cancellation of the stamps. That's the first question. Secondly, the cancellation of the stamp has to be done according to the Stamp Duty Act. For example, the Section 3A says, if the stamps are value over 50 rupees, right? The value stamps values are over 50 rupees. It has to be cancelled by writing the name and perforating the same, punching or perforating the same. If not, Section 4 says deemed to be unstamped. The stamps not cancelled according to the requirement of Section 3 of the Act are not compiled, then it's deemed to be unstamped. Now turn back and see how many of our documents are in perfect order. Most of they are signed. So there's a risk in signing over stamp. Now we take this document for file action, legal action, after some time back later. That's so 5, 6 years later. By the time the glue which has affixed the what you call stamp has been loosened and stamp may fall down. When the stamp came out from the document, along with the signature, thereafter no signature on the document. Okay? Thereafter no signature on the document. Next is we are holding now. Therefore, we have to take the signature above the stamp or below the stamp, not over the stamp. Okay? So, second thing is, if not cancelled in that manner, is deemed to be unstamped. Right? So, we had to verify before lodge the documents whether stamps are cancelled and adequately. How much of stamps to be affixed? The Stamp Duty Act, it defines stamp duty for each and every document. So whether we have followed the same uh, stamp duties according to the Act. Otherwise, the document becoming legally null and void. Then comes who have to sign the documents, who are authorized to sign the documents. Different organizations, the authorized person is differs. If it is a sole proprietor, no problem. Only one owner is the authorized person to sign. If it comes to joint account, of course, joint account holders are authorized to sign the document depending on their responsibility, both parties, or either parties, depending on their agreement. But when it comes to partnerships, who is authorized person? Any partner can borrow? Hmm? Yes, any partner can borrow, but all the partners has to sign the document. All the partners are individually and jointly liable for any transaction of the business. Therefore, to share the liability, all the partners has to sign for it. Right? All the partners have to sign for the documents. It is a partnership. When it comes to a company, who is authorized to sign? It is not the current account operating, who is the director who is operating the current account. The authorization should be provided given through an board paper. Yeah, board paper. So a board paper has to be prepared. A board paper has to be prepared and get approval from the board of directors. Which director is authorized to sign loan documents on behalf of the company? That person only authorized to sign. Other people who are signing the checks are sometimes may not have your authority to sign the loan documents. So we had to study this, going to their memorandum and articles of association and get the idea of who is authorized to sign documents. They should be properly executed. The way it has been mentioned in the legal requirement, it has to be executed according to the requirement. Then it should be complete in all aspects. Documents there should not be any blanks. Everything should be compliant and the compliance with the terms and conditions. So legal follow-up means before lodge the documents in the safe to check all the legal requirements are completed. In the registration procedure, some documents has to be registered, whether it has been registered correctly, at the correct land registry, correct portfolio. It is very important. Otherwise, sometimes you may find that we cannot trace the validity of the document if not registered properly. Then the insurance cover. Insurance has to cover the risk of the facility. Risk of the facility. Then sometimes some insurances are even face-to-face value coverage. Some insurance are not giving face coverage, but 50% of the face value will be given as coverage. Likewise, it is depending on the product and the risk. Insurance company, how they take the risk. So we have to see the insurance cover adequately taken. Now, for example, if you take a vehicle insurance, at the time of granting the first facility, we take the valuation report, and to the valuation report value, we will ask the customer to affix the stamp duty. Not for the loan value, it's for the market value. Okay, not for the loan value, it's for the market value. Subsequent years, value can be increased or decreased. Right? So we can change the insurance policy, only we can take the amount, risk cover, that particular portion of the risk for making risk coverage, not all. So when you take insurance cover, the insurance cover should be normally more than the loan value, should be more than the loan value. When you take up from the assets, it should be the market value always. Otherwise, what will happen if any gets a claim or anything happens, the insurance company will not pay the compensation. Therefore, the renewal is very important. We take at the time of granting the facility, fully all the coverage we had will be taken. When the customer asks to renew in the proceeding year, he may reduce may cut off certain what you call risk coverages, which a bank or the finance institution wanted, may be removed. So that will increase the risk. Therefore, always, whenever insurance policy is renewed for further period, right? Fresh new one has to be verified, go through and see whether all the terms and conditions are fulfilled by the company. Then the property mortgages, possession of correct title deeds. Okay, the correct title deeds, with the customer having the correct title deeds for a period of more than 10 years. More than 10 years, title deeds should be there. Now it comes under prescription ordinance. The prescription ordinance says the mortgages should have more than 10 years legal coverage. All the transactions after 10 years is affecting the legal coverage of the immovable properties. Then comprehensive legal opinion, and you has to be registered at the relevant the relevant insurance company. Also, certain insurances has to be registered with the register of motor companies when it comes to this mortgage of a motor vehicle. Let us see what are the these qualitative terms of follow-ups. Physical follow-up is one of the qualitative follow-up. Be natural with the due care. When you go to be natural, we are not actually professional valuers to look into certain interior details. We always apply the natural approach with a due care when you go for physical follow-up with specifically the assets and liabilities of the business. Inspect the system of maintenance, how the customer maintenance system. whether it's outsourced or internally, who is supervising, who is responsible for that. It's important. Probe age, quality of creditors. Whenever you look at inspect, they get the what you call age analysis of debtors. Very important. Probe the age. If the debtors are more than 6 months, those debtors does not have a commercial market value. Although it's appearing as asset in the balance sheet, it will not come back. Therefore, it's a non-performing asset. Not only the credit, even debtors can be become a non-performing asset. And we have to make provision for that. So see that physical verification that uh, age, the debtor's age has been debtor age analysis, whether debtors are less than 6 months, depending on the business, right? And how the recovery. Whether so sufficient bad debt provision has been made in the total loss account in the balance sheet. Otherwise, what will happen? Asset value has increased and it will deteriorate the position of the business. Similar creditors do a credit analysis. A creditor's age analysis important to see how long the creditors are going to credit. Longer the time is benefit to the business, but at a high cost, high risk. Okay, if they are not given facilities or credit, then we find difficulties. The stocks, machinery, properly insured against the risk. I told you earlier when I talk about insurance, it has to be properly for the value, market value, you have to do insurance. Any asset to be insured to the market value, not the book value, not the uh, loan value. Most of the time, by the lenders, they take only the loan value. It's wrong. If something happens, the insurance will not give the sufficient coverage or compensation if they are not insured properly. Then verify operations are satisfactory. Stock turnover, capacity utilization, number of shifts, machinery maintenance, right? Nothing adverse or external exists. Important. Machine maintenance is adverse mean underutilization. External exit mean overutilization. If a machine is overutilized, then what the capacity, it will have a breakdown frequent. And also production quality may get deteriorated. Right? We had that has to be clearly understood by the inspectors who are going for inspection. Verify order book's position. Right? What are the orders in hand? How long it will take to supply give the order? Or some of the follow-ups. Verify whether rent is paid in time. Verify whether strategical dues are paid, that is electricity bills, water bills, utility bills are paid in time, right? So those are, otherwise when fall in areas, there will be penalties and discontinuation, very serious. See whether Labour Act, Shop and Office Act provisions are compiled. That's it. This is very, very important. We have to see whether the customer is following the labor regulation. The Labour Act and the Shop and Office Act are two labor stipulated act in Sri Lanka for office shop and office workers. The provisions are when the company is compiled. Now, for example, according to the way back, if you are using female labor, certain conditions are given under the way back to be provided to female laborers. Whether those are compiled by the business. Otherwise, what will happen? If found uh, not compiled with that, and may find or may execute legal suits can be executed against the customer. So it will affect our repayment. Environmental Act complied with environmental pollution, whether it has been protected, whether they have followed that. Banks charge overstocks, machinery properly adhered, right? Bank overstock. What is the bank charge? The mortgage. What is charge overstocks? Mortgage bonds, mortgage overstocks, mortgage or machinery are properly adhered according to laws, regulations. This charge has to be done according to the sections. Section 17 of the Registration of Documents Ordinance. It has been done correctly. Discuss with the partners, key persons about unit, activity, problems, etc. What are the actual problems, what are the actual activities are taking place. Probe into frequent turnover key personnel. With the key personnel, factory managers, quality controllers, personnel managers, mostly involved in the frontline people, if they put French leaves, cuts, it have an impact on the business. That implies that these officers may not happy with the business. They are not happy. That's why this labor turnover is coming up. Then stock in trade, the quantitative follow-up. Stock in trade comes to the inspector of stock, machinery randomly. The quality of stocks, expiry date of the obsolescence, right? Quantity, compare with the stock statement, registers the quantity of stock statement and physical verification. We can do a sample check if we need it, find out the quantities. And unpaid stocks on the job basis, yearly contract, etc. There are certain businesses, certain productions are there on outsourced method. Now, for example, jewelries are given for are outsourced. Contractors are outsourced, right? So whether they have paid in properly in and properly time repayments has been made. Otherwise, labor unrest can be increased. Turnover accumulation of stock turnover in a longer period, then stocks are not moving. Therefore, it will have a big impact on the profitability of the business. The stocking pattern, how to keep the stocks, what is the requirement, what's the vendor's requirement, how it has kept stacking the stocks, what do you call, keeping stocks, that also have a certain impact on our non-performing advances. The valuation reports, check with the invoices, method of valuation has to be verified. Now, sometimes you may find, especially in immovable property mortgages, sometimes you may find, not always, certain valuers not giving proper valuation. Still, I can remember when I asked for my housing loan, we had to produce a valuation report, value asked a question for me, what is the loan amount? How much of the loan you are going to apply? So based on that, he prepared the valuation report, not on the market value. Very common. So we had to verify the valuation report with the actual position when you go for physical follow-up, the valuation reports has to be verified with the people who are surrounding to find out what is the actual value system. Sometimes you find certain properties are valued by the valuers where the auctions are taken place. Property developers, when take auction, They have a high value scales, right? When you go to adjoining property, you may find that the value of this property may be very much low. So this valuation reports given by the valuers sometimes not acceptable, may not acceptable. Okay, from the reasons why the unusual activity will decline. Right. Then this comes to the monitoring part: supervision, follow-up, and monitoring. What is credit monitoring? Any of the action of various persons or devices for checking or warning about a situation is called credit monitoring. In businesses, we have in the guarding facilities, we have posted certain monitoring devices. What are these monitoring devices? One of the devices asking for quarterly statement. One of the devices is frequent visits, inspections, asking for various reports are types of devices we use for warning about the situation. This is not a very serious thing. Any place, even a small house, they have these warning symptoms, checking for the warning symptoms, warning about the situation. So we have to be alert and find out whether it's a alarming situation or a false situation. Alarming situation, corrective measures have to be taken immediately. Credit monitoring is the key to prepare the bank by identifying the red flags throughout the term of the loan, whether payments are timely or not. The loan agreement outlines terms and conditions deliberated over 4 hours and often days at all levels of management. Levels of management, yeah. So what is this? Loan agreement, the covenants, conditions, terms and conditions put for us to monitor. When are we starting credit monitoring? When are we starting credit monitoring? It is prior to grant the facility. At the time of appraisal, we start credit monitoring. At the time of appraisal, we start the credit appraisal. Right? So the monitoring start with the credit appraisal. When do the credit appraisal, we find certain gray areas of the proposal. Certain areas has to be verified subsequently. Some what you call conditions has to apply to fulfill after granting the facility. So those are called covenants. So monitoring will help us to develop the covenants or the conditions. And subsequently, after granting the facility, we can monitor whether these covenants and the conditions are followed by the customer. Right? So management done by the management. So that's what called credit monitoring. Monitoring routine or continuous measurement of progress while the project is ongoing. Credit monitoring is continuous measurement of progress while the project is ongoing. Ongoing basis has to be carried out. Checking and measuring progress. You can't measure the monitor. If you can't measure the progress, you can't monitor it. To monitor it should be quantitative terms. It has to be the quantitative terms. In analyzing the situation, situation may change time to time. External environmental, internal environment may change. Now taking the case of today's environment for us. Day to day in Sri Lanka, our external environment is getting deteriorated. Economic crisis situations are there, and business is getting stagnated. People does not have money, and government is printing money uh, the way they want. So therefore, the what you call M3 money supply is increasing, production is low, cost of living is increasing, inflation is increasing. It will have impact on our recovery. So we had to look carefully look for the situation and to take corrective measures by ourselves. You cannot control these situations, but you can mitigate the situation by taking corrective measures. Reacting to new events, opportunities, and issues. This is what we are expected to do. Reacting to new events. What are the new events taking place? How to change the business towards the new events. If the customer does not move to the new events, definitely that business will going to collapse in the near future. So the credit monitoring will give us the red flag about that position. If you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. That's what we discussed on yesterday, little while ago. The monitoring is not about dealing with the bad loans. The most of us are thinking that monitoring has to be started when it is defaulted. No, it's wrong. Monitoring is, although facility in the regular section, we have to do the monitoring, not only going bad. So it's a misconception ourselves, right? It's about to keep good loans that way, to keep the good loans in that way. So loans are repayments okay. The future external environment is not changing. The loan portfolio is not changing. Then leave it as it is. No, you don't have to worry. But if we find red flags in this and disappear risk factors, then we have to take immediate action. About how we may able to detect weakening loans and keep them becoming delinquent or worse. First, observe and see whether it is getting weakened. That's the important part in monitoring. Observe whether any weakening of loans, detect it, and keep them becoming delinquent or worse without going for bad. Asset quality is dependent on how well we make the loan and how we manage it. How well we make the loan and how we manage the loan. Okay, so what are the issues of the monitoring? Customer performance monitoring. Uh, find the time, early warning signals, potential problem identification, taking initiative, preventive action, action steps for resolution. Customer performance monitoring, we will find the time. This is the what you call stock and barrel answer of our bankers, lenders. We don't have time. We don't have time to go for monitoring. If you don't have time to do monitoring, we accept the risk of default. That also affecting our business, our banking business. So we watch for the early warning signs. Monitoring, supervision, follow up. You are the warning signs. Different sections, these warning signs are coming up. So you identify these warning signs. The potential problem identification. It's exactly what is the problem of the customer. Exactly problem of the customer. Recovery management we discussed on the first day is to try to solve the problem of the customer. If we can solve the problem of the customer, our problem is automatically solved. Our NPA will be automatically solved. So identify the potential problems of the customer in advance. Try to address it before it gets worse, deteriorated. Taking initiative, prevention action. prevent going bad, or action steps to resolve the problem. Always keep your eye on the goal. The process includes keeping your eye on the ball. In the soccer, it says, keep the eye on your ball. Right? Most of the loans are good loans on the day that they booked. If problems come, they come later. Similar कभी bad loan का देते हैं उनके loan समय देंगे. But after some time it will become bad. Why? If you wait until the payment is missed, you are probably too late. Right? Before that, in the remedial management we discussed, the warning symptoms are coming up. So you take the corrective action accordingly, then you can control your non-performance facilities. If you wait for the financial statement, you may find the evidence of the problem which has already done the damage. This is a very, what you call, lethargic, lethargic in what's it, this is some of the our lenders take all cool time, right? Sometimes, if you have, for example, in December, you find some information about the customer, so you wanted the financial statements to come. So financial statements are coming in next March. Even though your financial ends in the March, it comes after another 3 or 4 months time. So by the time damage have already done. So it's important today, current position to know the current position. That's important. If you have covenants, put you must. If you wait for right. If you have covenants, you must monitor them. What are the covenants mean? Loan terms and conditions. If you have conditions, monitor carefully. We must be alert to the early warning signals. Identifying signals is very important. So our next session will be on that. Right? Do we know why the good loans are good and whether they have any negative signs? Why the good loans are good and whether there are any negative signs? Do we know why the stress loans are stressed and why what are the positive or negative trends of stress facilities? Also, always on the facts current. Why the good loans are good? Why the any negative signs are coming up? Why the stress loans not bad but becoming bad? Stress. What are the negative trends? So we have the ratios we can identify. So we presented this in the ratios how negative signs are presented. Lending is equal to origination and monitoring. It's like going ECG test. Monitoring is like ECG test. Your heart, the loan, is affected with the timely manner. So if you have taken correct action in timely manner, you may be able to. Now, this loan facility, look at this, what do you call, bar chart, right? It has been there's a deteriorating is very slow, low, whereas in general is all right. But certain time it has been deteriorated. So the quantum of deterioration, the quantum of deterioration, we can see how much by using a graphical presentation. Payment tracking plus performance. Payment tracking plus performance. And to do decide whether to maintain, increase, upgrade and reduce exposure and exit, decision points throughout the life of a loan, and in the decision point, one of many. Okay, in the monitoring, we had come to conclusion, decide decision. What's the decision you have to take? To maintain the situation as it is, or increase the performance, or upgrade and retain. Most of the time, we pay the attention to reduce the exposure and try to exit. Decision points through the life of the loan. Annual review is a decision point, one of the many. We don't expect perfection. We understand some loans will not be repaid in part or even in total. So we always 100% recovery is not possible. Due to some reason, somebody may get defaulted. And our job is to minimize the number, minimize the damage they cause. Right? So monitoring process will give us an idea about the how much of loans are there, the number, and minimize the damage going to happen, and what the cause. We don't expect the perfection. That is called prevention. Right? Minimize the number, minimize the damage, they cause prevention. Okay. Monitor to manage. How is my borrower performing? Balance sheet items we go through. How's the customer's liquidity? Revenue growth, margins, cash flow. Okay. How the liquidity is the balance sheet items, revenue growth, P&L items, and their margins, cash flow. Strategy changes, management changes, industry economic condition changes. Since I last checked versus my expectations. Try to get the information about this balance sheet items, liquidity, revenue growth, margin, cash flow, strategy changes, management changes, industry changes. Since I have checked these, then what is my expectations? We don't expect perfect. Status versus the conditions. Right? Status versus the conditions. You have to always see the conditions, not the status. Do I see trends of developing? What might be the impact on the cash flow? Always forward to. Monitoring is basically therefore identify the impact of the cash flow, because the cash flow is a tool to identify the repayment source. How to repay? Cash should be there. What are the links? Critical areas of financial operating risk, loan structuring, loan monitoring, and conditionality. These are the links between these. So I have a link each other. Critical areas of financial operating risk, and structure the loan facility accordingly. And thereafter you monitor. Those are the conditions. Which borrowers need monitoring? All of them. It's a rule of thumb. There's no discrimination about depending on the amount. Amount is not material. All have to subject to monitoring. Extent and frequency of monitoring, the application of the tool, judgment and experience guide the application. Judgment and experience guide the application. What the frequency? therefore prioritize. What is my concern the highest? Whereas the potential damage the greatest. So any business, our potential has to be what is prioritized the highest. And the potential damage is the greatest. Which potential damage will be the greatest? And try to prioritize that. So let us put a diagram, see what is the monitoring frequency and how depth the monitoring should be go into the details. Exposure size, deal complexity, borrower quality, credit return rates, QRS, risk and your honest assessment based on royal risk volatility. Risk volatility, certain cases, occasionally uh, frequency monitoring low, high in deviation, 10% occasional default can be take place, but 50% regular facilities. Customers' performance, 100% out of that 50% of the regular performance. The general performance we get 30%, high daily only 10%. So if you look at customers' performance 100%, high risk areas are these two. The regular and frequent risk. Often enough depth enough, often enough deep enough to know what is the status in risk like near term. Okay. Before a problem develops a stress, our attention should be paid to that. Before a problem develops to a stress, identify the problem. Before the problem comes to a stress level, take corrective action. And before the stress develop into a distress, before the stress develop into distress, take the action. And before distress result the default, special payment default. Right. When the problem starts, when you start monitoring current account performance, you may find the customers' incoming deposits are getting slowed down or deteriorated. Or depositing time lag is expanding. You can see a problem is developing. But still customer is repaying the loan, everything is okay. But internally we find that a stress of financial transactions is reporting. When it comes to distress, because when it transfer to NPA, finance is a proposal going to be a distress for you. And if after 90 days lapse, it's a default. So the time is money. Time is money. Action has to be taken immediately. What frequency you are going to refer is cost of monitoring. Reviewing and analyzing annual numbers is like reviewing a history book. Reviewing and analyzing annual numbers is like reading a history book. Monitoring is like reading a newspaper. Or even better, knowing what will happen newspaper before it's printed. So before it has happened, if you come to know, that's what called monitoring. At present, what we do, we go to the old financial statements, which are already obsolete, right? Which are already obsolete, outdated. Therefore, what is present market, present information is very important. Credit point have four components. Define objectives. Right? What is the objective of credit monitoring? Depend circumstances, places, type, and quality, it may change. Develop indicators. What are the financial indicators to identify the credit monitoring? And important factor is information. Collect data, right? Analyze the performance. Collect the data, analyze the performance. These are the four steps in monitoring. Monitoring, it gives the loan officers and credit officer staff the current idea of the financial statement. Monitoring the current idea of the financial statement. It facilitates the bank's awareness of financial conditions and operations of its borrowers and guarantors. It allows for periodic contact with borrowers to convey the bank commitment to their banking needs. It minimizes bank exposure through monitoring standard and loan-specific covenants by allowing room for the red flags to wave vigorously. Okay, facilitate bank the awareness of financial conditions and operations, borrowers and guarantors. Monitoring conditions. Right? And frequent contact with the customers, borrowers. Right? To show that bank's commitment to their banking needs. We are always there with their requirements, needs. To it minimize the bank's exposure through monitoring standard and loan specific covenants by allowing room for those red flags very vigorously. Covenants should be assessed for the loan agreement and approved conditions. The process in monitors financial statement submission, financial governance and loan restriction adherence. These are the conditions we apply in credit monitoring. Annual review and future compliance of assessment. What is the requirement, future requirement? Assessing or looking at today's customer's business. What is the trend? What would be the customer needed next 3 months? That is what the objective of credit monitoring. Follow up and any other situation that requires extra attention. The minimum total credit exposure should be determined by senior management to monitor relationship of the conditions. Right? Uh, Extra attention is needed to look in to see whether the covenants are followed by the customer. Each ongoing covenant assessment should have its own monitoring loan. When to monitor? An initial loan assessment monitor should be prior to disbursement, I told you, before the startment of facility, at the time of negotiation for a facility, monitoring will be started. To verify that the loan pre-closing conditions have been well met. We discussed this little earlier, I think last week, pre-sanction conditions. What are the pre-closing conditions? If the customer has met that conditions. To ensure timely follow-up system for each loan. Each and every loan, timely follow-up is important. Then existing monitors should be updated during the loan renewal process to recognize changes in the loan terms and conditions. When the terms and conditions has to be changed, when it has been taken at time where it is needed. The loan is discontinuing the monitoring when the loan is paid in full. They discontinue the monitoring. Total exposure drops below the minimum amount of loan monitoring. Minimum amount of loan monitoring, the bank to bank differs. You say, for example, we are not going to monitor facilities below this level. That has to be decided by the management of the bank. Loan transfers to non-performance. When you transfer loss section, pointless going for monitoring. Discontinuity of monitoring should be documented for future reference. Why you discontinue? What the reason you are discontinuing this facility? That should be indicated by putting in a document for future use. How to do the monitoring? The monitoring requirements and procedures can be function of bank's asset size, loan losses, devices, reserves. The monetary requirements and the procedures can be function of a bank asset size, loan and loan loss reserves. Management style of bank senior officers also varies about monetary methodology. The different management styles applies by the different bankers from their type of facilities. So as monitoring differs depending on the size of the facility. The higher the facility, tight monitoring is needed. Uh, Covenant compliance assessment should become part of a bank's loan policy. Covenant compliance assessment, that means to what extent monitoring conditions are compliance means followed up. It should be the bank's policy, incorporated in the bank policy document. Loan covenants inform the bank potential concerns in a timely manner that set covenants by recognizing the strength of each transaction and identifying the most appropriate and least cumbersome way to assess their continued strengths. And set out covenants, that's the conditions. Covenants mean conditions to recognize and strengthen each transaction, to identify, recognize each transaction, and identify the most appropriate and least cumbersome way to assess the continued assess. Right? Each transaction, each and every transaction, and apply the most appropriate, least cumbersome technique to want to say. In case of a term loan to be disbursed as per schedule approved by the bank, right? So all the facilities has to be disbursed according to the schedule approved by the bank. Now, this is very important. This is somewhat called need-based finance. Specifically, business customers' facilities, when we discuss, in practice, what we do at the moment is applies straight away when you granted the facility. On the disbursement day, the full amount will be given to the customer. It should not be the way. It has to be dispersed according to the need, scattered basis. That is important. Right? Loans should be given for preparing of land, putting on the building, buying of machinery, and other expenses. Likewise, it has to be dispersed part by part. Disbursement of installment related to the actual progress in the implementation of the project. Site visits periodically. So we have to see if it's a project, site visit is very important, at least once a month, to see the actual progress. So looking at the actual progress only you should do the disbursement or release the funds. In a business, loan should be delivered according to the need we set in a timely manner. Right? When the customer need to purchase, at that particular time only you have to release the funds, not before or later. Progress in project implementation should be as per schedule. For any delay, seek borrower's view on steps taken for reactivation. Monitor costs being incurred, monitor contribution, borrower's contribution, reasons for cost of overruns. The cost of the project has to be monitored carefully because most of the thing over a period of time, cost escalates, cost increases. When the cost increase escalates, original loan amount may not be sufficient to complete the project. So there, how this to get the borrower's contribution or in for any cost overruns, where the cost has been override mean what we projected expenditure has been increased, more expenses. So those things has to be looked into in the disbursement level. In case of cash credit, this cash credit long term must be disbursed only when the unit commences commercial production. Now this term is not actually common for us, right? This cash credit account, it is normally we use the permanent order facilities in the case of if sanctioned along with the term loan must be uh, dispersed, right? Along with the term loan has been dispersed. That means term loan is given for capital expenditure, overdraft facility service for working capital requirement. So it should be go hand in hand. Only when the unit commences commercial production only we have to do this disbursement. Right. Let us go through it about the project financing, how to do credit appraisal in project financing. There are four ways of appraisals doing in the project monitoring: project appraisal, management appraisal, market appraisal, technical appraisal, and financial appraisal. The financial appraisal consists of computation of project cost, profitability forecast, and working capital computation. Right. Computation of project cost and working capital computation are the most crucial in financial appraisal. We have to monitor carefully these two because these are the two areas where most of the businesses are getting failed. Okay, identify the project cost with the customer have been correctly evaluate the need for the project cost for the land, how much of spending for the land, and what is the cost of building and structures. BOK has to be, or quantity survey has to be prepared BOK. Then the plant or machine requirement. How many plants machine required? We have to fix. What is the capacity? Has to be analyzed. Then the vehicles. What are the vehicles required? Types of vehicles. For what purpose you are using vehicle? Commercial vehicles against personal vehicles. Those are part of project cost. Then other fixed assets, other than building and material, plant and machinery vehicles, working capital finance. Right? The pre-operative expenses. How much going to be the pre-operative expenses? What is the permanent working capital and what is the revolving working capital? So what are the contingencies we anticipate when implementing project cost? Right? So look at the project location. Then you're going to monitor the project financing based on raw material source. Where the raw material available, where factory situation located close to the raw material source is much better. Any substitutes, availability of raw material, what is the distance involved, transport the raw material. right? Though that will be in additional cost can has to be incurred. Based on proximity to distance, what's the demand, how far the market is. Based on government intervention, that export processing zones, industrial parks are some of the project location established by the government. Affect the factors that affect the project location and utilities. The power supply, availability, cost, what are the power incentives like renewable power? Today we are concerning about that. The water supply, the quality of water, what is the mineral content in the water, then the quantity source, internal purification systems, and may have tube bills. What is the cost of tube bills? It's part of monitoring of water supply in a project. Then the communication system, uh, availability of telephone lines, fax lines, email facilities, Wi-Fi facilities. Today's current changes with the Wi-Fi facilities are some of the important factors to be considered. Factors that affect the project location, climate conditions, humidity, rainfall, temperature, prolonged drought, natural disasters are the climatic condition which will affect what we are monitoring of project financing has to look into. Then transportation access to the premises, place, the availability of transport services, public transport versus personal transport. The business structures, building layout plans, regulatory approval, conditions, right? Layout plans has to be approved by the regulatory approval that has been approved by the municipality, UDA. Certain buildings have to be obtained from the UDA. Construction of buildings, specifically commercial buildings. Then building usage, factory, workshop, stores, administration block, worker rest area, canteen, sanitary services, welfare. Whether these have been clearly defined, clearly located, and the places which are located are with the suitability of the location of that field. For example, the sanitary services and the canteen. Normally it's close by, but to what level it is purified and electricity. Electrical installation with a separate transformer is there. Sometimes you see some project financing. The financiers insisting installation of standby generators. All the general line has to be obtained to keep standby power supply is important. Then the drainage system, how to wastewater management, how the wastewater is dispersed. So also comes under environmental analysis. Then parking, garage, parking lobby, and etc. about the building structure. The load has to be released on the stages and make allocation for time delay or cost overruns. You have to keep an allocation on that. Then plant and machinery, finance project, list of machinery, main machineries and ancillary machineries. Look at catalogs, brochures, invoices, rated rated capacity. That means what is the production capacity? Machinery production capacity. So when you are granting a facility, what is the production capacity? What is the expected production capacity? What is the expected production capacity? So that has to be decided by to fix in the machinery. Because the customer has to always maintain the expected production level in average manner. Then installation, training, test runs of the machineries, this has to be carried out. The economic life of the plant and machinery. Okay, final one comes to the profitability forecast based on assumptions, right? When you do project financing, this is another important part. Number of working days in a year. How much days you are working? 5 days a week or 6 days a week. Then 20 days or 22 days working days for a year, a month. That's 12 months, how many days? Number of shifts and duration of working hours. Right? The machine's capacity, depending on that, how many shifts can be run? 2 shifts or 3 shifts. Storage capacity, utilized capacity, I discussed it a while ago, is what is installed capacity? What is the how much of how much of production can be done by the machine? That's called installed capacity. And what is actually utilized? How much of used? Now these two will give indication about the profitability analysis of the the capacity of the operations. Okay, install capacity, utilize capacity. So install capacity will give the direction how much maximum will be manufactured, and utilize capacity we can compare with the projected capacity, which level it is customer is operating. If the install capacity fully utilized, the profitability will be remaining same, it will increase. Whereas underutilized capacity, then the cost of production goes up, profitability come down. Turnover production ratio. Turnover production ratio. Right? What is the production ratio versus the turnover? How much can be sold? So it will give us idea about remaining stock, how much of remaining stock, right? Which has to be financed by the either customer or the bank under permanent working capital. Then debt service coverage is one of the important ratios we have to consider about the profitability forecast based on assumptions. What is the debt service coverage? So normally debt service coverage in accountants terms, debt, that is how much payable as loan installment and lease rentals, right? Divided by net profit. Divided by net profit is into 100. It's called debt service cover ratio. Without sometimes some books which give you the number of times. That is total debt. The profit is divided by profit. Net profit is divided by total debt installments. That is loan installment, lease installment, and you get number of terms, number and how many times it's covered. So better it should be more than 2 times. It's a better ratio. 1.5 may be acceptable. Less than that is a dangerous. Now it comes to the banker's point of view. The bankers work debt service coverage in a different way. it is not profitability. It is not looking for profitability. It is looking for the solvency, right? Risk and solvency. What's that? The service cover ratio with the bankers, right? Uh, cash flow. Cash flow will be divided by loan installments. I will tell you how many times can be covered facilities for from that cash. It will give the liquidity position of the company. Then interest cover ratio is the without so for sometimes you may find customers' debt service cover is not sufficient because the income is not enough to pay back the loan. But project is viable. We may offer him another product called permanent overdraft facility. So the permanent overdraft you don't have to pay in loan installment. There's no debt payment. Therefore, there's no debt service. But you have to service the interest. So cash flow divided by interest will give interest cover ratio in our current context. But if you look at the books written about the financial and accounting, they divide the profit by interest and then how many times is covered. Okay. Factors that affect the project location. And first, the labor, availability of skilled labor. What is the labor turnover ratio? How much the cost involved? When we look at in the back about the apparel industry, Mr. Premadasa wanted, as a prime president, to take the factories to the village. One of the objectives was to reduce the population increase in the urbanization. To cut down the urbanization, people, employees has to be stay in their own areas, and jobs are provided by the way of apparel industry. But now if we look at that area, we may find that it's not successful. Although the buses are paying about 10 or 15 buses are given to transport the labor, still for all, people are not happy. Then zoning regulation, specifically UDA. The UDA have allocated areas in the country as residential areas, commercial areas, and industrial areas. Now, in a residential area, we cannot start an industry. Similarly, in industrial area, we cannot start a residential residential performance. So, going to roll zoning regulations. If you apply certain area, it is practically applied. I have a case for you to understand the gravity of it. It happened in the Ekala industrial estate. Ekala industrial estate, two houses inside that area, two houses filed legal action against the factory. And factories inside the industrial industrial zone regarding their water in the wells are polluted, contaminated due to waste released from these factories. The waste released from the factories, it has gone into the soil and the water has contaminated. They have no drinking water or water is contaminated, therefore they can use this water for cooking purposes. So they filed action to remove these factories at the district court of Kampa. What was the judgment? Judgment was that those two houses to be removed from the industrial zone because they cannot put up houses in the industrial zone. sometime back, it's happened about 15, 20 years back. It's in India. It's in India where let's call this that plant Agra. The Agra Supreme Court has given a judgment to remove all the factories about 2 miles radius around Taj Mahal. Okay? Agra Supreme Court has given a judgment to remove all the factories 2 miles radius around Taj Mahal. So the Agra is industrial area. By the reason, due to the air pollution of the flame coming out from the factories, and it has been fallen on the Taj Mahal, and Taj Mahal, the color has got discolored. The color has becoming yellowish and blackish. So it's a national monument. Therefore, Agra, that Indian Agra this Supreme Court has given order to remove all factories from that area to safeguard this monument. So these important zoning regulations are very important. In Sri Lanka, there are a lot of zoning regulations. Some of these things still bankers are not knowing that. Only we know the UDA regulations. What are the other regular restrictions, legal implications of regarding putting up constructions? There are a number of legislations are available. They are in implication. The most important ones are RDA regulation, road development regulation. You cannot put up what do you call buildings either side of the road. There's a road reservation. A and B grade roads 50 feet from the center of the road. C and D 25 feet from the center of the road. You're going to put up constructions. Under Beach Conservation Act, after the tsunami, Beach Conservation Act was amended. 100 meters from the shore, you can put up constructions. Then Land Reclamation Act, you can put up in Colombo City. There are a number of canals. Number of canals there in the number of Colombo City. After 1987, the big rain, 438 millimeter rain, most entire Colombo City was, the area was submerged. And the regulation was passed under the what you call under Land Reform Act to you cannot put up constructions either side of the canals with 60 feet distance has to be kept. Likewise, there are a number of other, according to the again land, what do you call that act? Land Allotment Act. You cannot block and sell the lands, estates, tea estate, rubber estate. You cannot fill a paddy land under Agrarian Service Act. These are the regulations available involving this, along with the zoning regulations. The other is in disposal, waste disposal, laws, environmental factors, how to dispose the waste. Then regulatory laws and recycling of waste. Right, specimen loan agreement compliance monitor. The loan agreement, what are the, this has been developed by the Indian, what do you call, NIBM, National Institute for Bank Management, India. They have developed this monitoring format, right? This monitoring format has been prepared by them, and it was, I got it from them. Right, what are the components of this compliance monitor? Loan identification, the borrower. Who is the borrower? Position of the borrower. Legal position of the borrower has to be identified. What is the collateral offered? What is the type of loan? And the date of granting the facility. And maturity of the facility, expiry date. Amount of loan. And what is the credit exposure, total credit exposure? Account number. Who is the credit officer? And this first file we call relationship officer. Then what is the next compliance date? And annual review. So this has to be reviewed periodically. Any changes has to be updated. Second section concerns the financial statement tracking, the type of statement, the reporting method. That is balance sheet, profit and loss account, cash flow statement, any other statements. And what is the reporting method? Whether it is in the normal form or in the ratio form or comparison form, that has to be decided. The responsibility and the quality of the financial statement. And what is the due date? Our year ending is 31st of March. So we had to make a date, one hour before such and date, such date. The statement has to be submitted. Then date, what is the date of assessments? Either quarterly, or half yearly or annually. Section 3 involves the financial covenant and the financial ratios. Prepare the financial ratios and we monitor any changes in the financial ratios. Then non-financial covenants, market analysis, environmental analysis, technical analysis. These are the other more important. Then section 4 is the signature section where inspecting officer has to sign and what are the exemptions available for that. Right. In India, we got ARCs. Sri Lanka, we don't have this one. That is asset recovery companies. When the when the bank defaults, customer defaults the bank loans, the bank will sell the loan to asset recovery company. Right? Asset recovery company will take over the assets and liabilities of that particular customer and they do the recovery. So now see, bank officers happily looking at the assets are taken over, machineries and the factories are taken over by the ARCs, asset recovery companies, where two doctors and attendants, they have the cash in hand, right? Okay, they put the cash into the box. You see? That means they sold the non-performing facility to asset recovery company. So these are one of the recovery methods in India. So we don't have this such of a complexity. Although there were some in 1990s trying to do these asset recovery companies, take over the default facilities from the bank for a price and try to do recoveries. But the price offered by this company were not attractive for the banks, therefore this project was failed. They want to buy at the rate of 40% of 35% of the value, breakup value. So banks said, no, we can't recover more than that. And still NPS are increasing. Okay. So finally, what are the options available for recovery? Rehabilitation. Then comes to compromise settlement, the liquidating of assets, litigation, do nothing, book out. These are the options available for the banker or any lending institutions for recovery. Right. So that's all about the first part. Second part will start after a break. So we'll have a small break and come back and start for the warning symptoms. We'll go for the warning symptoms. I'll try to upload by now. I didn't do that. I thought it will take time. Anyway, we'll try to upload the this and I'll that handout so we can discuss that after the tea break. Right. Next step, we discussed now what is supervision, monitoring, and follow-up to identify, to analyze and identify the red flags. Monitoring is to basically identify the red flags we said, solve warning situations. So let us discuss what are the warning signs of potential non-performance facilities. So warning symptoms are it is a signal given for us to take care, precautionary measure. So early warning symptoms refer to ability of the bank to anticipate, detect, recognize, and report problems as early as possible, so that prompt corrective actions can be taken to avoid problem loans. This is what you are expected by early warning symptoms. What are early warning symptoms? They refer to anticipate. You have to anticipate that any moment, any changes can have an impact of default and detect that. Anticipate, detect exactly what the problem is and try to recognize problem and then report the problem. So early warning symptom always refers to identify the problems and try to solve the problems. Let's understand and remember the basics. Let's understand and remember the basics. Our focus has to be on asset quality, how to achieve it and how to maintain it. These are lender, a banker's job. Our focus has to be maintain our asset quality. We discussed on a first session what is this asset quality. How, if it's deteriorated, what will happen to us? Last week, previous week, we discussed that. Then how to maintain the achieve the asset quality, and how to maintain it. And on the risk-adjusted returns needed to grow and maintain the business and to preserve and grow retail earnings. Our objective is that. Asset quality is the basis. Where we have to get risk-adjusted returns. Returns has to come with the risk. And need to grow. Banks, financial we wanted to grow. And we have to maintain the business continuously. And to preserve and grow our retail earnings. So that is the objective of that's the objectives of our investors or the shareholders. Weak loans, NPLs, etc., and good loans don't just happen. Cycles come and go, but the level of asset deterioration does need to follow the economy and the liquidity conditions on one-to-one relationship. We are responsible for the quality of our portfolios. Right? But it says weak loans and NPLs, etc., will not happen overnight. Right? In other words, no facilities defaulted overnight. Cycles come and go, but as level of asset deterioration does not need to follow the economy and the liquidity condition on a one-to-one relationship. When the cycles goes ups and down, we have to take precaution action. We have to take remedial actions. We have to take uh, what do you call actions relating to avoid the situation. Okay, what action to take? Avoid the remedy. What action to be take? Overcome the situation, or we call that as to overcome the situation. So we are responsible for the quality of our portfolios. Our loan quality, always there are ups and downs over a period of time. There are boom periods, there are bust periods. Loans are going up and down. Okay, so we are happy about the boom period. We are this period we are earning a lot of profits, and loans are portfolios are good. We also should anticipate loans have this type of types of bus situations. It may go down. So over a period of time, it can happen. And what can we do? When it's going increasing, don't think that nothing can go wrong. When our memory in our mind, if there's a boom situation, we think that nothing can go wrong. But when we come down, declining birth situation, our thoughts are going on, nothing can go right. So that is our thinking pattern. Okay. The quality of the bank portfolio, therefore, should not be measured only by the level of NPLs or delinquent loans. It is not only a one, there is only a one measurement. Method is called NPL level. I mentioned, I can't remember whether I have on the first session I discussed. There are certain non-performing assets in our balance sheet which are not showing as NPE. I discussed with you on my first session, the first session of recovery. The condition of the loans in the good portfolio and the trend in the performance of financial position of those borrowers can foretell the future is brightness or the darkness. And even the portfolio and the trend of the performance, we can judge about the future. When there is a boom or a bust, when there is a bright or a darkness. So maintaining a bank's portfolio in a good position, good portfolio, is a anticipation, expectation of all the banks, all the lending institutions. But it is not the truth. It's not happening. There are instances where loans are going bad. To identify the bank loans are going bad, taking corrective action is our role. Remember, banks do not succeed by violating risk, avoiding risk. They succeed by understanding the risk and managing them. This is an important factor you have to understand. Banks do not succeed by avoiding the risk. We cannot avoid the risk. We have to absorb the risk and then mitigate the risk. That's how we manage the risk. We absorb the risk and try to mitigate the risk. That's how we manage the risk. Succeed to understand the risk and then managing them. Successful bankers focus on the key principles of making loans and managing loans. Key principles of making loans. How to grant a loan successfully and successful managing them. All the bankers, all the lending institutions, lenders are granting loans, making loans, but they are not good in managing their loans. That's why NPA levels are increasing. And then use their common sense and business judgment to balance market realities and sound practices. Two factors are talking about this author. What is that? Common sense and the business judgment in the market realities and the practice. In between market realities and the bank practices. Use the common sense and do the business judgment. The principles are universal, not market specific. So we can apply the universal principles in recovery. Loan quality is not just a characteristic of conservative banks. The characteristics of a conservative bank. It's a characteristic of quality banks who exercise care in lending and monitoring their risk assets in all cycles. They are managing their facility portfolio in all cycles. That's called loan quality. What is credit culture? How we approach the business of extending the credit. Our key principles and our shared values. How we do things at our bank. It's called credit culture. Bank to bank, in a financial institution, they have their own credit culture. How we do things at our organization. What is our approach to extending the credit, granting the credit? What are our principles? What are our values? Based on that, only our credit culture has been established. So each and every bank has their own credit culture. So those who are working in those banks, all the employees should understand this credit culture. What are their key principles? What are the shared values? How we do things at our bank. We are not copying others. Therefore, elements of strong culture, first to understand who we are. Know your customer. Know your customer. Then how we do the business. Cash flow is what pays obligations. Three factors about strong credit culture. Who we are and understand our position, our strengths and weaknesses. How we do the business, our policies and our performance, and what we care about. Ultimately, what we are objective. Those are strong elements of strong credit culture. To achieve these three, we'll understand our customer, know your customer. We'll understand the cash flow is what pays obligations. Cash flow is pays the loan, not the profit. There should be two ways out at least. Two ways out mean there should be two ways of cash flow. One is the cash flow from the operation business, other one is cash flow from the realization of securities. So there should be collateral. There should be a collateral back. Second way out, at least. Finance, what we understand. We understand what is finance is lending. And loan purpose is to be productive. Always keep in mind, objective is to the purpose of loan is to be productive. It should generate a profit. And sufficiency of information is very, very vital. To make this loan purpose is productive, we need information. This is what we are lacking in our organizations. We have no, I can't say we have no access to information. We have access to information, but unfortunately, we are not using those accesses to find out the information. Okay, really decisions based on sufficient facts. Really decisions has to be made on sufficient facts. Then that's important. We don't take shortcuts. Credit appetite, terms and pricing vary and bend, right? But the standards do not bend and the culture does not break. This is where we make mistake. Take shortcuts. Lending will shortcut net. Credit decision has to be made on thorough investigation, right? What the credit appetite. Terms and pricing vary. Terms, pricing, and they can build, that can be changed. But the standards don't build and the culture doesn't break. That's called strong culture. Know the customer, of course we do, don't we? Trust the character, reputation of the customer, information about the customer, about his business, about the industry, about the management, and the numbers, full disclosure. That's his financial position. Consist communication, continuous, consistent communication with the owners and the managers. That will lead to know our customer better. That is a reputation, the character. What are the information we need, external and internal? And that will help us to understand the customer. Only cash repays loans. Lender must know what's happening to the cash, where it comes from, and how it's used. We lend on cash flow. We lend based on cash flow, not on collateral. And our customers need to understand this. Not only customers, we bankers also should understand. Collateral will not pay the loan, it is the cash. Therefore, cash flow is very crucial. Understand the cash flow. There should be multiple exits. Cash flow from the operations is the first way out, always. But we look secondary source of repayment as well. There should be a backdoor. Emergency exit has to be there. Emergency exit has to be there. Multiple exits. But therefore, cash flow is the basis of analysis. Repayment ability is based on the cash flow. But in any case, the cash flow deteriorates, there should be second way out. That's our collateral. That's our backdoor. We would not prefer to get red cards in our game. Yeah, not prefer to get red cards in our games. In our play our lending portfolio game. Problem loans and early warning signals are and understand what is problem known and what are the warning symptoms. Recognize the problem zone is a credit officer's job to make sure that the bank always knows current situation, that is healthy, steady, marginal, deteriorating, in trouble, where the customer is. All credit officers of the bank make sure the current situation of the customer is a healthy customer, is a steady customer, a marginal customer, or customers is deteriorated or is in trouble. Bankers hate surprises. If a missed payment comes as a surprise, then usually relationship manager has not been watching. Credit officer is not watching. There can't be any surprises. Even last session, I mentioned that no facilities defaulted overnight. There are period of sequences, period of time. Over a period of time, there are warning symptoms are coming up. So we have to monitor those warning symptoms, and it will not becoming a surprise to us. But unfortunately, today, for some bankers, if miss the payment becoming a surprise because they are not watching that. I'll give you an example. How do we know that our branches, the customer is defaulted, he's not paid his loan installment on the due date? How do we know? In manual system, when we do in manual system, we used to take the amortization card of the ledger and mark the ledger sheet that loan is coming up. But if chance there's a cash check, we have to give the priority to the cash check. So cash check has been paid, loan card will be returned back. So immediately we know that the loan has not paid and we take immediate action. What is today's position of the banking? All of the digital and integrated, all type of technology we use. Ultimately, everything technology based. Everything automated. Whether the customer paying the loan or not, nobody knows. It is the system only knows that. But the bankers has what you call design, what you call system to inform the bankers about the mispayment. That's the daily statements. There are a number of statements generated by the system where we can monitor this, recognize a problem. In that lot of the bundle of reports, there's a one report called default report, default loan or missed fault or target or whatever. Some there are different terminology used by different bankers. Whatever it is, finally it is the default loan statement. How often you go through that? Every day you have to go to. Daily you have to check that. But who are the customers not paid their loan installment yesterday? And immediately you give a call to the customer, try to find out what has happened to him. That is the duty of, that's the job of the bank, credit officer's job. Immediately give a call, find out. Because today technology is highly developed, or send the SMS message. Try to contact him, if you can't contact him, send a message, send an email. Technology is so developed, we have access to that. But unfortunately, if you are not going through the statement, how do you come to know that customer is not paid? If you miss today's statement, tomorrow that statement will not generate. Names appearing in today's statement, you don't know tomorrow if you are not gone through the statement today. After it's happened continuously, after 3 months, three installment falling due, system will automate it, is automatically transfer the facility to NPA, non-performing section. There's somebody in your head office or in the regional office watching your performances. There's a credit controller in all the banks. Now he watch each and every bank performance. Now he comes to know that certain customer, very important customer has been transferred to NPA. Then a senior officer gives a call to the manager asking, Mr. So and so also transferred to NPA, no? What happened to him? Then only manager wakes up. Who'd kill that? It's becoming a surprise. It's a surprise to the branch manager. And it should not be. Avoid these surprises. Daily you have to check that. That's the most important part of your monitoring. Okay. There are number of warning symptoms available in our system to identify the where facilities are going default. No facilities transfer to NPA overnight. This period of time, the warning symptoms are appearing. So we have to monitor that. Right? Warning symptoms are like an iceberg floating on in the water. This is actual natural one we got from a see. It's iceberg floating on the sea. So the cameraman able to get the entire picture of this iceberg. Only 20% of the iceberg can be seen. 80% of the icebergs under the water you can't see. So you see only the symptoms of the problem of a customer is 20%. The real problem is under the water, you can't see. It's underneath, you can't see. So whatever action you take to remedy this 20% will not help to recover your facilities going bad. This is called Pareto's rule or 80-20 rule. The economics we call this as Pareto's rule, Pareto Prasasti. What happened to the Titanic? Well, I'm talking about the story of the Titanic. The captain saw the iceberg. Captain saw the iceberg. You would have watched the film. Saw the iceberg. What he did was immediately turn the ship to avoid the hitting the ship on the iceberg. Immediate turn, but not realize the breadth of the iceberg under the water, 80%. It is so big, it has knocked center of the body of the vessel. So iceberg didn't knock against the ship was Titanic was not knocked against the rock. It is by turning center part of the body has broken into two and water flown inside. So to understand the gravity of it. The informations are very important. 20%, when you see the 20%, go into details, find out what is the exact problem and try to solve the problem. Our problem is automatically solved. Okay, while informations are available, I had divided two groups, internal factors and external factors. Internal information systems are the basics and secondary. Current account is the basic information. Secondary are the financial reports, operational reports submitted by the customer, which is they are in our bank. External things are environmental factors, newspapers, inspections, site visits are informal ones. Okay, so basic information is the current account. What's the current account? I just talk little about this basic factor current account. Very important. What are the information available in the current account? What are the lending decisions can be taken to clear the current account? Do we use the current account in that manner which we can use it? What are the information we are getting from the current account? Current account is, from the banker's point of view, business customers' current account is a reflection of customers' financial behavior and financial discipline. ගනුදෙනුකරුගේ ජංගම ගිණුම මූල්‍ය විනය සහ මූල්‍ය හැසිරීම විදහා දක්වන කැඩපතක් බඳුය. It's a reflection of financial the discipline of the customer, financial behavior of the customer. Do we looking at the current account on that basis? We look at only the highest balance, lowest balance, average balance, number of check returns, total deposits. So looking at this information, what decision you take, what conclusion are coming about the customer's background. That's a problem. What is the highest balance? We just get a figure The highest balance for the last 6 months. What inspires to you using that figure? හය මාසයට ඇතුළත තියෙන වැඩිම බැලන්ස් එක බලලා මොකක්ද ගන්න තීරණය? It's an absolute figure. Even not a comparative figure, it's an absolute figure. Therefore, the information is very vague. Only tells balance as at that date is so much, that's all, nothing else. What is expected from us, looking at the highest balance, is the range of highest balances within 6 months. Range. Customer, which range operate the current account, whereas the highest balance is coming in that range. So that will give some information for us. That will give some information about the customer's value. How much of this customer is value for us? How much of amount of business can be given by this customer? That will be given using this current account information. What is the lowest balance? Similarly, vice versa. It is not the lowest balance, but the lowest level of operation. Where the lowest level of operations is accepted by us or not, because we have each and every branch have a minimum deposit level. To maintain a minimum deposit level is established based on our cost of operations. Cost of operations, each branch has a minimum level of deposits. If the customer's balance is coming below that amount, that customer is not a productive customer. That customer making losses to the bank. It's not making not giving any generating any income to the bank. That's why we are charging a service charge for them to compensate that. Okay, to compensate. Excuse me, my battery getting low. I forgot to put the charger. Okay, right. That's information what we need. What level of operation is that? Is this below the minimum balance? If it's the minimum below or above the balance, or is maintaining level of the minimum balance. So it will give us some idea. Is it an average customer or an unproductive customer? Whether you got a facility or not for this customer. Okay. Then number of creditors. That also gives very valid information. How the customer's deposit pattern. What is the deposit? What is the deposit of a customer, bank deposit of a customer? It's a reflection of his turnover. Part of the turnover comes to the bank as deposits. Don't you think that you see how much of business customer is giving to us? Take the annual turnover. Take the annual deposits. See what percentage the customer has given to you as a deposits. Is more than 50% is deposited in the bank. It's a good customer, acceptable customer, valuable customer. But if he deposits only 25%, less than 25%, he may be operating for banks. He may not having good relationship with your bank. That's what it indicates. So using this information is very important. Identify the customer. Who is the customer? Know your customer. But unfortunately, we are not using this information. We take the highest balance as the highest thing as the account. Right? It can be misleaded. It can be misleaded. Why? That highest balance may be release of a loan or an extraordinary transaction he has done. It's not a regular operation. He may have deposited somebody else's check and balance has gone up to that level. So find out for the reason. The other is, misdirect information you are giving for the management decision makers is the deposits. You take the total deposits, sometimes 6 months deposit, divided by 6, and some banks giving average deposits for the month is so much. What what meaning is gives to us? What inspires us? Okay. The deposits are basis of, I said, sales or turnover. Then the amount of deposit comes to the bank. Okay. We take into consideration and say this is the balance. Now, from where you get this information? The total deposit, where from we are getting? From the screen. What is the source of information you are getting from the screen? Total deposits. End of the month, there's a total deposit appearing in the statement, the what you call screen. You take that as the total deposits. Now, just go through the transactions. Go to the transactions. Customer has deposits cash to pay a loan, pay an overdraft. That also appearing as a credit. And you consider that also as a deposit. It's appearing as a credit in the current account statement. So the total credit, that also included. Customer has deposited checks to his account credit. So checks are deposited credit. All these credits are appearing as credit in your sorry. All these credits are appearing in the current accounts as you consider as deposits. But half of these have been returned. Return checks. The return checks are appearing on the debit side. You take only the credit side, not the debit side. So you are misleaded. Right? Or else, sometimes extra, somebody has given check to deposit to account, that was as then check returns also debit. You had a mistake, wrong amount has been debited to account or credited to account. Credit misposed or a debit misposed. If you have credit disposed, misposed of a credit, that also is taken as a deposit. Any debit misposed will be reversed by crediting the account. So that also taken as the deposits. Okay, how's your information? How practical information? All these what you discuss items are not deposits. But you refer to your management as these are the deposits. Very unfortunate. Okay, right. So I'm not going to discuss other factors. We will discuss on the screen. So operating of current account. The other one is credit card account. Operating of loan account. Very, very vital information sources. Check returns. What is a check return? What check returns implies to you? Customers indiscipline in managing his finance. Check returns reflects the financial discipline of the customer. He is not able to manage his when the checks are comes to present for payment. So please we can find out. Okay. So therefore, what are only one signals comes from periodical interim financial data indicating unexpected changes in the balance sheet and the income statements are reflecting bond shipments and the cash flow statement items. So basically, changes in the operation which are troubling are inventory turnover slowing down, inventory number of days increasing, inventory turnover slowing down, number of inventory days are increasing. It give you warning symptoms first. It will deteriorate the profitability and also deteriorate the cash flow. In account receivable turnover slowing, as the data collection is slowing down. Have you detected that? These two are some of the warning symptoms, signals appearing in the financial statements. Why this inventory turnover increasing? Why the recovery turnover is increasing? Basically, that is management quality weakness. Management quality decision-making weakness is appearing in the balance sheet as inventory turnover slowing and account receivable turnover. So management answers the question or they are unable to do so, also very important. Okay, those are some of the signals. Financial statement and financial data, historical but can carry signs of indicating emerging and developing stress over a period of time. Past papers, past information, historical information you go through, you can identify the emerging and developing stress situations where ratios are deteriorating over a period of time, that's developing stress. And I can identify that. Tells us where the borrower has been, and more importantly, maybe the direction in which the borrower is headed, which direction is going. So finance data analysis, data analysis tells us where the customer is going, which direction customer is going. Okay. And others also drop in cash and cash equivalents. Cash balance, cash equivalents, that is inventory, debtors. Changes in current account activity. Just little while ago I discussed about the current account operations. Increase in average credit outstanding. Right? Credit outstanding mean if you increase in mean loan is not paid. So outstanding balance is increasing. Payables turnover increases. Suppliers payments have been increasing because you don't have find cash to pay to the creditors. So creditors turnover will be increasing. So all is in there. Inventory turnover slows, unexpected request for additional credit. To cover up these shortfalls, customer may request TODs frequently. Additional credit by the way of TOD is another danger. These problems, without solving, without looking at the problem, try to solve the problem, granting TODs, further deteriorate the situation of the customer. खबरने लिपटदाना customer. Repayment source there's no repayment source, but you are giving TODs. So that source will be also added to liability on the customer's point. Request for additional credit for unexpected reasons. Request for additional credit for unclear purposes. Short-term facilities. These will be warning symptoms to understand. We were not told, we weren't you told, some might be rollovers extension request, some are intensively or interest margin increases, then return checks, inbound to outbound checks, checks are deposited, those are returned for lack of fund, or your checks have been returned for lack of funds. Negative press, negative industry news, loss of significant customer due to some reason, loss to demise of the customer, just so the customer may not bank with you for some reason. You lost a very important customer. Bureau report shows increased debt in business, bureau business and personal. That is, CRIB report shows increase in the debts, other borrowings, individual as well as individual directors as well as personal business. Unexpected fixed asset purchases or investment, which are not warranted. So these are some of the warning signals. Why were not you told that? This is becoming a warning symptom. So some other warning symptoms. Others, missed insurance premium payments, etc., etc. All strategic payments. Prevent early, continuing due diligence. Raise the issue as a question, not an accusation. Don't blame the customer. Raise the issue as a question, not an accusation. Management may not be able to see because they are focused elsewhere. Therefore, you may be doing a favor pointing out this. Raise the question, raise the issue as a question. They may be able to quickly ease your mind if you correctly detect and identify the issue, the problem. Better to ask than wonder. Okay, active versus passive. When there is a partner with common interest, we bankers are partners of any business. Why? We are appearing in the balance sheet of the customer next to equity. Equity, the permanent capital, our capital, borrowed capital, lending capital will be a timely capital. Can be a medium term or a short term. Okay. A question of balance. It has to balance. Balance on the rope. This is what we have to do. We have to take precautionary actions to balance the situation. It's a question of balance. Later stage warnings, symptoms, options are becoming more limited. Later stage, that is, when it comes to later stage warning, those are not symptoms. Early warning symptoms are symptoms giving the warning to us to take preventive actions. In the later stage, symptoms are options are becoming more limited. We have no limited options for recovery is getting more limited and limited. So what are these late stage signals? Suppliers tighten their terms. That is, creditors not giving credit, or suppliers are increasing their price for giving credit. Right? Unexpected asset sales. Then idle equipment operation side, if you see machinery are not used properly, assets are not used properly to generate any income. Late financial statement is very, very common. Why the financial statements are getting late? 31st of March financial statement, if you ask, they are giving the statement in September, October. Why is that? I asked from one of my friends, he's a chartered accountant, why are you delaying these customers' financial statement, not preparing? He said, Machan Makiyai, we had to balance what he paid as those days, of course, VAT, those what he paid as VAT, and the VAT payment has to balance with the sales. Whatever deposits have to balance with the sales. The sales has to balance with the purchases. And despite of that, we have to reduce the profit as according to the owner's request. To all do all these things, we need to prepare a fresh financial set of documents. No? Fresh set of financial statement has to be prepared. Alute set හදන්න what he tells you. Alutem pot set හදන්න. You have to make a new book set. That is not actual position. It is a manipulated position. That's why the late. Risk is that. Delinquencies but quickly paid. Sometimes payment delays or sometimes quickly may be paid those things. Evidence of differing expenses, specifically statutory expenses. Salaries are not paid on due dates. Taxes are not paid. Income tax and other statutory payment. Electricity bill getting arrears. Water bill get arrears. Telecommunication bill arrears. They cut the line frequently. Those are later stage signs of warnings. Management unavailability or non-responsive. When you give a call, management is not responding. So if you go to see them in their premises, they are not available. Abrupt changes in the management. And key people also abrupt changes in the business are later stage symptoms. Loss of key people, accountants, factory managers, quality controllers, personal managers, who are in the key position people are frequently, if you are changing, there's industrial dispute in that organization. That indicates that people can't work in that organization. So it is a warning symptom for us. Limit reductions or cancellations by other banks. Right? So the customer, his limit will be, overdraft limit will be reduced, or cancellation of their credit facilities by other banks. That's also a very strong information source. Stock price, bond price. Right? Major capital have stock price. The stock price is the share price. Bond price, they are not issuing bonds in Sri Lanka. The real, you get a bond. So the prices of products, financial products, are coming down. Those are warning signals. Request for refinance, another lender. So if the customer asking facilities, refinance from other lender, underwriting from another lender, that's also a big warning symptom. But a 5 to 10 day delinquency or breach of a loan covenant are not early or even signals. The problem is already there. If the loan is defaulted 10 days or 5 days or 10 days later, breach of a loan contract, loan agreement condition, it's not a signal. It is already problem is there. It is burst. This is prior to burst. Now it's burst. Manage. Time is everything. Best time to deal with the problem is when the problem is developing. Timing is everything. Before the formal receipt of financial report should only confirm what you already know. Financial receipt of financial report is what says only confirm what you already know, not the future. It tells the history. What has happened in the past, last year. That is already you know about that. What you should know is what is happening today, what will happen tomorrow. That is very important. So we have to follow an action timeline for that. Right? Action timeline for that we have to develop. It is timelines all positive. indication of a stress, early warning signals, later stage warning, then all positive, you will not take any action, just keep quiet. You just ignore and wait. When it comes to indication of stress position, that is customers loan the balances position getting stressed. That is check returns, asking for DODs, loan installment delayed. Then if you look at the business operations are getting slowed down, those are indication of stress. So we have to take proactive resolution, identify the problem, solution and options can be given. Restrict immediately. Then warning signals, later stage, and later stage warning signals also should be proactive. Then breach of covenants, then you get reactive resolution, cure, resolve, what are the actions? Proactive resolution, right? Identify the problem and try to give a solution to retain the problem or minimize the problem. When you count breach of covenants, then your action should be cure and solve the problem. And what are the action options available? When it comes to payment default, under duress, we have a very few options. Relationship jeopardy. Finally, you can go for recovery procedure, litigation. So this is action timeline, right? Your action at the all positive time is the much better. When indications are getting stressed and warning symptoms are appearing, right? Early warning signals are appearing. That is the time you have to take corrective measures, corrective action. That will help you to resolve your problem. Resolve your problem. Okay. So our action should be in advance so should be proactive. But if you have taken action or a proactive action has not been solved the problem, then we can see breach of conditions and later stage warnings are coming up. So we have to do cure, not the what you call remedy, but to cure, to resolve the problem. So we have number of actions available. We'll discuss next. What are these actions? Rehabilitation, one of the actions. Compromise settlement, another action. Likewise, we have a number of actions available for us to identify and resolve the problem. Right? But when it comes to default 90 days, passing 90 days, options are very few. Options are, and our relationship, the customer is getting negative, bad. Customer not trusting the bank is not trusting the customer. Finally, we end up with litigation. Okay. So, what's next? Can you relax? Looking at all these symptoms and signs, can you relax? It's not possible. You can't relax. You have to take action. So, very vital, the informations. Informations are very vital. So, therefore, avoid financial crisis coming ahead. prevention is better than cure. Okay, I think that's all for the day. We can discuss. Another 5 minutes time, my power will be getting distracted. Therefore, I want to stop it before that. Within another 5 minutes time, our power disruption started in our area. So I try to finish it up within this time. Thank you very much. So any questions? Any questions? Any clarifications? Okay, so next session we'll be discussing what are the recovery options available for us and how you go along with the recovery options and our basic how to apply these recovery options will be discussed next week. Not next week, next session. I think next week we don't have any classes because this long interval, what do you call, long leaves. So we'll be meeting after that. Okay, so thank you very much. If I don't have any other question, I'll wind up for the day.